Welcome back to day 3 of the Pure International Conference. Um, Reflecting on yesterday's day 2, we had good talks on open research, the role of Chris in ARR, workflows and funding, integrating to and from Pure, and an increasing array of metrics and awards available to use in Pure. I love John McCafferty's comments from the need that it's better to discuss open research instead of open science, because that resonates more effectively with arts, humanities, and social science practitioners who don't consider them scientists. So that's a pretty cool comment. And I loved Armand's hammering Elsevier to be far more clear in our scope of support for funder-compliant IR functionalities in Pure, or synchronizing with IRs that can do the job. So having lived in the Netherlands for 3 years, I expect nothing less than frank discussion, which was quite useful. And we look forward to following up on those and including UK and other stakeholders with similar issues. So thanks for that feedback. It was a great session. And we heard a lot of other good things yesterday. So looking forward to today's agenda. Today's agenda is again packed with discussions by customers on how they use Pure, their experiences, and further opportunities. Also, a few product managers are going to share information about what's developing on our side at Elsevier on some topics and share that with you. So starting off today's agenda, you have a choice of Nordics between a talk by Aalto University in Finland on the use of the new reporting module to measure the effect of Plan S in a Finland context, or on track 2, a talk by Lund University in Sweden, who has already been working on using their external affiliations data in Pure to improve reporting or showcasing on collaboration partners. So this talk will cover the benefits and the considerations and the use of that external affiliation data. After that, a Pure product support specialist and implementation consultant from Pure and a Pure product manager will give a talk on the various uses of Pure reporting that if you're new to Pure reporting, you might find useful to consider. Or on track 2, you can discover how the Pure Executive Committee at the Universidad de los Andes in Chile successfully implemented Pure and how the governance continues today. After that, a delegate from Kiel University will discuss running Pure on IoT, Internet of Things. Not sure if that's related to test instance or anything, but and on track 2, a consultancy from the European CRIS systems at CRIS will discuss recommended procedures during RIM or CRIS systems implementations to meet the legal data protection requirements for protecting personal data stored in RIMs. Very important topic. And then after the break, you can choose from a talk by the New Jersey Economic Development Agency that describes collaborative economic development efforts by New Jersey's public and private entities, academic, industry, and government, in utilizing cluster-focused development as one element of creating equitable economic opportunities for New Jersey citizens. This talk is about the economic development mission. Or there's a session by an Elsevier PM that walks you through the results and insights from a global survey that's been conducted on data quality within Pure. The survey was designed to understand how you, as Pure users, view data quality as a topic and any supporting activities and functionalities that you're using. After the New Jersey State Economic Development Agency's talk on how they use the community module of Pure to bring together data from universities into a united community-wide portal, the Pure team will provide an overview of some of the differing community purposes or interests that clients are pursuing. This will include a discussion about the sociological and technological factors to consider when developing a common community platform. Meanwhile, on track 2, the Elsevier SciVal team will share a summary of research findings from customer universities seeking data streams or insights that can help them build a narrative around research impact. And after all those fine discussions to wrap up the week's agenda, Elsevier will give 2 talks, one covering the Pure API, illustrating some use cases that are possible with the new Pure API, and of course, we'll provide assurances about the fine-grained controls to protect who can access or update what data in the system using the APIs. Track will explain our plans to expand the Data Quality Command Center, touching on our strategy based on the 5 C's of data quality: complete, correct, connected, compliant, and current. This will examine in detail the past improvements, the current improvements that are rolling out now, and upcoming features on this topic of continually enhancing capabilities to manage data quality in Pure. So then if you can join us at the end, we'll do a brief conference wrap up and we'll be on our way. So Thanks. Okay. Again, in the Connections Hub, you'll be able to connect with other delegates. There will be people related to the world of Pure that you may wish to follow up on, everything from support to partners to other user groups. So please enjoy the Expo conference during the break. Thanks. So I'd like to thank in advance our day 3 session moderators. They are Baron Wolf, AVP of Research and Director of Research Analytics at the University of Kentucky in the United States, and Eichen Friedrichsen, Head of the CRIS team at Kiel University in Germany. Don't forget, you will see a pop-up survey after each session. Please fill those out so that when you come to next year's conference, our planning will be informed by what you felt to be valuable content instead of us guessing at that. So please, much appreciated. Thank you so much. And let's get this party started. All right, over to you.
Welcome to day 3 of the International Pure Conference for North America and Europe. My name is Baron Wolf, Assistant Vice President for Research and Director of Research Analytics at the University of Kentucky. I will moderate track 1 today. You can always remember that you can submit questions to the speakers using the live Q&A button located on the right-hand side of your screen. Time permitting, we will cover all Q&A questions at the end of each presentation. Now, I'd like to start the first presentation and introduce the speakers for the session. Antti Rousi is a member of Aalto University's Open Science and ACRIS team and has worked extensively with CRIS systems and open science. He holds a PhD in information science. Joining him today is Laura Mure, information specialist, also at Aalto University, and has been involved in their Pure instance since 2017, working with different tasks within the management of the system and also with daily operations such as answering user questions, creating reports, testing new versions, and importing research outputs. They will be presenting on using the new Pure reporting module for measuring the effects of Plan S in the context of Finland. Remember, please submit your Q&A questions in the Q&A box on the bottom right. Go ahead, Antti.
Thank you, Baron, and hello, everyone. First, before we begin, a few words about our university. It was created 2010 through a merger between the 3 leading Finnish universities. So even university seems to be relatively young, our history goes beyond that. You can see even from the names of the merged universities that we are a very multidisciplinary community. So one can say that almost all internationally recognized fields of study are represented. Our academic community consists of 12,000 full-time degree students and a staff about 4,000, of which nearly 400 are professors. And we have every year over 3,000 students graduating. And Pure users we have been since 2016. About the publication scheme, I have here figures of publications produced in our university in the year 2020. And the figures are usually quite stable, so there's not much change from year to year basis. So in 2020, the total publication amount was approximately 3,800 publications, and from those, approximately 3,500 were scientific publications. And out of those, approximately 2,500 were peer-reviewed articles. At the moment, most of our publications are already published open access, and we are emphasizing so-called green open access, which means that most of our open access articles are actually self-archived into our local Pure system. We are actually expecting some changes in this. So mostly because in general, the whole open access publishing is rapidly changing all the time, but also because Plan S has come into effect this year. And this is actually exactly the reason why we did this study, because knowing that over 70% of our external competitive research funding comes from funders which are committed to Plan S. So we wanted to see what kind of effect, if any, Plan S will have to our writers. Plan S is most likely familiar to most of you, and basically we are talking about quite ambitious mandate, sort of open access policy stated so-called Coalition S, which is formed by major European funders. The key principle of the Plan S is that starting from 2021, all scientific publications arising from funding of the coalition partners must be made immediately open access and published in compliant open access channels. Furthermore, all publications must be published under an open license, preferably the Creative Commons attribution license. So we are really talking about quite ambitious push towards open access publishing, and that is why we think universities should take measures to examine its effects in detail. Traditionally, publishing in open access journals is measured using citation databases such as Elsevier Scopus, but we didn't think it is a good method for us because they mainly index English language journals, which in our case means that they will only cover approximately 60% of our yearly publications. So that is why we thought that using our local Pure will give us better results. And we also knew that we have quite a lot of information already gathered to the Pure system. For example, we have the information like open access types, article processing charges, Finnish classification rating system, and so forth. And one of the reasons why we wanted to try Pure is also that we could test how well Pure's new reporting model is actually working in practice. So the aim of this study is to describe a model, how the data collected into PureQuiz may be used to monitor the effects of Plan S. And by effects, we mean how the features of Coalition S-funded publications included in this case study change between pre-Plan S era, which are sampling material from 2021, compared to Plan S era, which are the sampling material of 2022 and 2023. And naturally, we don't yet have any data of Plan S era, but the idea is that we create a model for examining the effects and can detect maybe the key problems of the model. And the whole purpose of doing this study is to see whether the open access publishing changes or whether it doesn't change in Coalition S-funded projects. And if it changes in that way, we can actually see what services and journals our researchers are using when moving to immediate open access publishing. And this knowledge will give us opportunity to support the key journals, services, and publisher negotiations. And furthermore, if you notice any gaps in the data quality, we can improve the used systems and the data correlation workflows in Pure. But now let's get my colleague Antti to show in detail how the study was actually conducted. So I will hand over to Antti now.
Thank you, Laura. And thank you, Baron, for the introduction. So basically, if we look at data input in this kind of small case study of ours, the publication input comes from either the imported publications imported from Scopus, and then we have publications submitted by researchers, which many of probably who you use Pure are familiar with these. And then the key thing, or something that is very specific to our context, is the VIRTA, which is kind of data collection model. And within this VIRTA model, the articles are classified into 3 different types. Either it's full open access, hybrid open access, or then it's unknown, or then it's the manuscript route. Basically, those are the 3 types that we classify the categories of open access that we use. And then after the publication metadata has been imported, then we do a curation of the data, specifying the VIRTA open access type. We try to obtain the manuscript from the researchers, probably something that you all do as well. And then we include the APC payment data from financial services to the articles, and then we do the curation of project relations. The project instances are integrated from the financial service systems, but then the validator or the person doing the curation checks and adds these relations to the articles. So that's kind of the base of the model. And as Laura will point out, that's probably the Achilles heel that we found. Is maybe it is likely that our project relations are not as accurate as they could be, but Laura will talk about that later on. Laura, could you please show the next slide? And then when we talk about data integrations, as I mentioned, project relations data are integrated to financial systems. We do have the Finnish Publication Forum, or UFO, that classifies journals. That it's a 3-category classification. It's the basic leading and top model journals. Other Nordic countries. So that's something that we also integrate to Pure. And then we have the DOIE information for journals, which helps us to kind of classify articles to the gold open access type in the VIRTA categorization. And then we have Serparoma, which helps with the manuscript. But that's basically that. That's data input and that's data integrations. Laura, could you show up the next slide? So this is what we attempted to do. As I mentioned, we wanted to do a pre-plan as kind of study so we could see how well the model works and what we need to work on. So basically, we can use the new Pure reporting module to kind of see that, well, how the share of the full golden access journal articles change within the quality on as-funded articles, and then we can see how the publication licenses change. I think that's something very particular to the Plan S. And then we can see what happens to, or what's the share of green open access. That's also very interesting in the context of Plan S, if you are familiar with that. And then we can see how the UFO, the Nordic kind of classification, changes within these pre-test types. So there's a lot of opportunities and a really kind of interesting insight what I think you can look into using the new Pure reporting module, and it's quite, I think, easy to do. Having said that, I think I need Elsevier's helping seeing how the UFO classes could be implemented in it. So I tried to do it, of course, the last on the last minute, and we can maybe discuss later. That's not a critic of Elsevier. That was my own fault. I couldn't make that work. So, but let's see the results. We have some time. Still, even if I can see quite plenty. So there you can see, if we look at the pre-planners era, we don't really have yet the 2021, but we can full data, but we can already see that the hybrid model has gone up. And that's really kind of partially due to the fact that the transformative agreements that most of you are, I think you are familiar with, they are categorized into the hybrid model of openness. So we can see an increase in the usage of the transformative agreements, which then is reflected to the amount of green open access. As you can see, it's dropping. And this is again the pre-plan as era, and we can see how this dynamic change when we start getting the project that operate under the plan as principles, and there's some undefined, so that's also a data quality issue. So now we notice that we should have those kind of maybe checked. And yes, you can see that we have that the amount of quality and as-funded articles in 2021 are already quite the same, even though 2021 data is still quite, it's not complete. So that either tells us that there are more publications, or then that we are doing a better job at adding the project relations to the publication. But it's quite interesting. We'll see how it happens, and it seems to work. So could I get the next slide, please? And then we can see the license type. We can see there's an increase in CC BY, which I think is good, and there's a decrease in unspecified already before we are entering into the plan as terms. So that's something that we can maybe look up. Maybe the unspecified is more related to the green open access, because it's often the publisher's copyright, and only rare publishers use these CC licenses. But we can monitor that. That seems to work quite well. Laura, could I have the next slide, please? And these are something that I found also very interesting. Now, again, this is the pre-planners era. So we can kind of see that what are the publishers of quality on as-funded articles top 5, both in 2020 and 2021. And we can see that Elsevier and Springer Nature and Association American Association Chemical Society are key publishers. So we need to pay attention that we have the transfer agreements and the quotas there are well sufficiently laid out, as there will be most likely be a higher demand for those within the PLANETS era. The gold journals are also very interesting. We can see that we do a lot of physics research in Aalto, and physical review research is an American Physical Society's journal. And then we have IEEE Access that are one of the most frequently used gold open access journals. So I think these are quite interesting results and kind of give us some insight. The Multidisciplinary Publishing Institute is also quite much used by our researchers. And the APC data, unfortunately, that was still incomplete from 2021, but it can give us some really interesting insights. So in 2020, we had the gold model we paid, and this is APC paid by the projects and departments. These are APCs, again, paid outside of the transformative agreement. So we can measure how much money is spent beyond these kind of transformative agreements, which I think is quite interesting. And we'll see whether this hybrid model that is paid by the project and departments the cost will decrease, hopefully as we implement more transformative agreements. And most likely the gold model costs will rise, but then again, these are often reimbursed by the funders within the PLANETS scheme of funding. I can see that we still have time. There's like almost 12 minutes. Luckily, we have still some more slides, but I think it does show that we can create some quite interesting results with the new pure reporting module, and Laura will talk about some of the drawbacks that we found later. But I think this is a really interesting, good tool that we can use to kind of allocate or support the most important services to our researchers when they will kind of adapt to the requirements of PLANETS. But that was it. The results there very briefly, and Laura will go through some of the kind of problems that we found during this case study.
Okay, to summarize the key challenges that what we noticed was firstly that this Finnish VIRTA open access status, it doesn't really make any difference between pure hybrid journals, transformative journals, or journals under transformative agreements. And this meant some extra efforts for us so that we could make the difference between these open access types in the reporting. And secondly, project relations are added always manually to the publications by our service staff. And of course, then there's always a danger of human error when it's done by hand. And also as project relations in Pure are key in our model. So we would actually like to end this presentation to the open question or improvement suggestion to Elsevier Pure team, asking that could this information be integrated directly to publications project relation part instead of a bibliographic note, as is happening now when we are, for example, using Scopus as online source import. So thank you for listening, and now I'm handing over to our moderator, Baron.
The presentation. It was informative. We now have a few minutes. We have about 10 minutes for some questions, and we do have some questions that came in from our audience. So the first one is, what are your experiences with the new reporting module in building the reports that you needed? So talk a little bit about that experience.
Well, I can take that first one. No, I know that Elsevier is providing this kind of templates. I don't know if that's the right word, but this kind of ready-made reports. I did craft that one myself, and I think I found it quite easy after. Although I have to say I did undergo Elsevier's training. I think that's crucial. So Elsevier does provide really good training on how to use the Pure reporting module. And after I finished that training, I was able to kind of craft that reporting myself. And it was pretty straightforward. I did struggle with the UFO classes, as mentioned, but I can't really blame Elsevier because I was trying to do it, of course, as always, in a pretty tight sketch. Does this answer the question, or?
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. I think that the templates are useful, but getting in there and doing custom reports is part of the power of the new reporting platform to have it do exactly what you want it to do. Another question that came in is, there's actually quite a few coming in now. Let's see. Will you consider in your analysis another dimension, potentially funding size versus the number of ROs? And I assume ROs might be research organizations. That's my assumption. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I'm not sure if I understand the question right. Yeah, you mean that scale up to a national level, or do you mean something like that, or looking? Because the it is true that the Finnish VIRTA model, that we have a national system like Tiede and Tutkimus, which is actually, I think it's a great initiative in Finland, and we do have national data. And it's yet a bit unclear to me how well these different types of information will be aggregated at the national level. But I think there's technical potential to do so. So we'll see. But of course, the functionality of the Finnish national reporting and Finnish national examination relies on the data that the universities provide. So therefore, it is important that we make sure that the data flow to the national systems is as correct as possible. I think I don't know if I understood the question. Maybe I avoided it, but
yeah. Well, I think your response leads into another similar question, more about the reporting module. How did you identify coalitions funders in the reports and specific to those funders?
I think I have to answer this one as well. So I used we do get the funder names from the financial services. So our integration works show that there's a kind of a standard name for both Academia Finland and the EU funded projects. And I can by sorting out the data through the funders' names, I was able to craft that statistics. So it's based on our integration with the financial system that provides the name of the funder, and the name of the funder was used to identify the funded articles. Sorry, I don't know if that was very clear, but that was nevertheless the procedure.
Are conference proceedings important to your university? And if so, will you include those in your reporting? And do you expect any difficulties in that effort to do so?
Laura has actually experience on how the Finnish Ministry of Education scheme doesn't really fit with the Pure, right? We did examine that. Do you want to? I mean that. That's a good question, and we should do it. The thing is that the Finnish VIRTA scheme of publication type doesn't exactly fit the Pure research output types. So we can kind of approximate it by using conference articles, but yeah, we should definitely look into that. The pre-study was done on articles, so and it's a good question. We should definitely include the conference articles as well. Okay. And it should be done. Shouldn't be too difficult, I would say. Good question.
We have two more. Go ahead, Laura.
No, I would just like to add that at the moment the new reporting model doesn't actually have this. We have made this improvement success to Pure Elsevier actually, that we would like to have this Ministry of Education publication types included there. So then we could get out of this new reporting model this information easily. And now it's not very easy to get that information out.
Okay, we have two more questions, and then we might go back to a previous question. How do you collect the amount of the APC in Pure? And
yeah, do you want to answer, Laura, or should I?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
So what we do is we get lists regarding the invoices from the financial services. So that's also quite tedious. So we go through the financial reports that we get from financial services, and then we add these costs to Pure, to the metadata in Pure. You all know the specific field that's in Pure. So it's a tedious service effort still, but it's done manually using the reports of the financial services. I think we can do it because we are a relatively small university, so there's not that much data, but it's done by hand using the reports from financial services. Great question.
okay. Our final question for this session, because we have 3 minutes left, is an important question and something I think we all struggle with at times, well, all the time. How is the connection between a paper or publication and a funded project identified?
Well, I can take this one. That was actually this improvement success and what we were making to Pure Elsevier team, because now we are identifying that from our validator. So our service staff is opening the PDF, so the article PDF, and usually from the acknowledgement part, if there is a mention about the project number or the project name, then it's manually added the relation between the publication and the project records in our Pure local Pure system. And this is something we would really like to get some kind of automation.
Yep. We did have one more question come in, and I think we might have a few minutes. Does your university library pay for transformative agreements?
Yes, we have quite many transformative agreements. Maybe too many to name here, but I think we are part of the Finnish Electronic Library Consortium. So we have a consortium in Finland that negotiates the deals. So Finnish universities are quite small, and the consortium gives us more power to negotiate, and when we all negotiate together, and we have, I would say, for the major scientific publishers, we have transformative deals with all of them. Do you want to add anything, Laura? Did I forget something?
No, that's right.
Okay, great. Well, we've reached the end of this session for track 1. So thank you, Laura and Antti, for your session on using the new Pure reporting module for measuring the effects of Plan S in the context of Finland. So thank you. For all those attendees, we'll take a short 5-minute break. In that time, you can go find your next session, and thank you very much.